review these. So you guys see if we could talk, if you could remember some of the names of these bones. So let's start. Raise your hand, please. Name the bone. Shay?
Pelvis.
Yeah, pelvis. Sarah? Cranium, yes. How about right here? Jared?
Scapula.
No, the scapula is the back, this shoulder blade back here. Andrew? That's the sternum. Obviously, these are the ribs. How about here? Maggie? Well, we have a name for the bones. Inside is the spinal cord. But the actual bones, prima, the vertebrae. How about here? Abby?
Humerus.
Humerus. This is the thumb side. Austin? Radius. Brandon? Other side? No. Patrick? Ulna. All right. How about up here? Christian? Clavicle, yes. All right. Down here. Jared?
Femur.
Femur? Kneecap? Austin? Not the kneecap, no. Mary Laura? Patella? Thick front shin bone? Joe?
Fibula.
No. It's the tibia. The one, the smaller one in the back, Maggie? Fibula. All right. All right, good job. Our next section, we're going to talk a little bit about joints and the different types of joints. So, as we talked about yesterday, a joint is a place where two bones connect. And there's different types of joints in the human body. We're going to talk about some of the major types, but some of them have multiple subtypes within them, but we'll just talk about the basics. So the first one is a hinge joint. And a hinge joint is just like it says, you know, a door, this door has 3 metal hinges here on the inside, and they allow the door to move, but only in a single direction. It opens and closes like this, but like you can't lift up on the door, you can't like tilt it forward. It only swings in one direction back and forth. That's what a hinge does. And in our body, we have some hinge joints. Okay, so a hinge joint only allows movement in one direction. So what do you say, mate? What's one example? Yeah, the elbow is an example. What's another one, Patrick? Your knee is another example. If you think about how those parts move, your elbow, you could bend up it, you can move your arm in one direction only. You can't, if you stabilize it, the elbow, your forearm doesn't move side to side. Okay? It's just moves in one way. Same thing. Yeah, I mean you could have problems, you could have dislocations or joint issues where there is movement where there shouldn't be, but a properly functioning elbow allows only one direction to move. Same thing with your knee. Your knee moves forward and backward, okay? But you shouldn't have side-to-side movement in your knee if everything's fitting together properly, if the tendons are anchored properly. So those are hinge joints, elbow and your knee. And these various joints work this way because of the shape of the bones and the way that ligaments are holding them together. Like if you look at the elbow joint here, okay, the way the bones are configured, the radius fits into a groove here at the bottom of the humerus, okay, so that it slides forward and backward, but it can't really move side to side because of that groove and because of the way the bones are shaped. So that's why that joint works in that way. Your knee joint, same thing. The bones fit together, okay, so that it moves in that single direction. Now the ball and socket joint is another type of joint that gives a wider range of motion. okay, that gives more movement, not just in one single plane of motion, but in multiple. So a ball and socket joint works by one bone has an end that's shaped kind of like a ball, and it fits into a concave depression in another bone, and that allows the ball part to sort of rotate in multiple directions within the other part of the joint. So what joint are we looking at here? No? Nope. This should tell you this part of the bone. Okay. Yes, this is the pelvis bone. And what bone is this?
Femur.
That's the femur. And so if I took off, you see in this femur, the top of the femur has this round, that's the ball part. You look at the pelvis, guys, and there's this indentation. And so the ball of the femur fits into that indentation. It's held in there with various ligaments that stabilize it, but that allows movement in this way, also movement left and right. So you have this wide range of motion in the hip joint and also in your shoulder joint. Your shoulder, you can move this direction, you can move this way. You have a wide range of motion, but that's all held in place there with various ligaments. So this is an X-ray, and it's showing an X-ray so you can actually see the bone, you see the pelvis, you could see the top of the femur, but you could see how it rotates. It has that indentation, and the femur rotates within the pelvis joint. All right, now another type of joint is called a gliding joint. Okay? And a gliding joint is a joint in which bones are positioned sort of on top of each other and can slide one over the other. And an example would be the vertebrae. If you think about the way that the vertebrae are arranged, each of those bones, those vertebrae, they're sort of stacked on top of each other, one after the other. Okay? And in between is a little disc of cartilage to cushion them. But one bone can sort of rotate on top of the other, allowing us to sort of twist, allowing you to move your neck. These don't move very well on this model skeleton, but you can see when they move the neck, you can see that these bones sort of all slide on top of each other. So it allows that twisting motion that we have with our neck and with our back. Also, in your wrist, in your fingers, there's some gliding joints, like this plane joint. But there's also other types of gliding joints, like the saddle joint, the ellipsoidal joint. They just allow sort of slightly different types of motion. Our wrists, our fingers, our ankles, these are very complex joints with lots of various bones attached. And so it's not like just one simple type of joint. Maggie?
So if you go like this and it cracks up here, is that bad? Like,
no, like cracking joints and knuckles and stuff for your back or your neck. Really, what happens is little pockets of air can get trapped between the joints. And when you like crack something, you're sort of releasing that air, and as it gets released, it makes that sound. So it's not really people, your parents might tell you don't crack your knuckles, you get arthritis.
Oh my God.
It's not actually true.
That's a feeling God would really.
Go ahead.
Yeah. It just loses your.
All right, our fourth type of joint is something called a fixed joint. And a fixed joint is one in which bones are sort of fused together and they don't actually move.
Why is it still moving?
It's just too close. So fixed joint are bones that are just sort of fused together. And where would you find a fixed joint like this? Probably the most famous one is the one that you probably know of.
What was that?
I don't know a fixed joint, Brandon?
Oh.
Yeah, in your cranium. Your cranium is actually made of several bones, and they're not initially fused together when you're an infant. Babies are born, and those bones aren't fused together. And the reason is that their brain continues to grow a large amount in their early development, and so that cranium is still flexible to allow the brain to grow and forward to expand. Eventually, after the brain's fully developed, those plates that make up the cranium, they do fuse together and it becomes permanent. But if you have a baby cousin or a brother or sister, you may know they have a little soft spot on the top of their head.
Don't push it, they cry.
Well, you shouldn't push it, Shay. That's kind of yeah.
I didn't. Don't worry about it.
So you actually send her down to the school social worker.
Excuse me,
All right, listen, please.
no, we are not dismissing yet. However, faculty, staff, and students, it is getting pretty bad out. So students, I'm asking for some flexibility actually from faculty and staff. Students, if you need to make a call for a ride to come get you, if you're confused or unaware, or just need to contact home, I would ask that you come down to the main office at this time to do that. We have our phones ready to go. The reason being, we don't want anybody staying here and possibly missing buses because they're not coming back due to the road conditions. So faculty, if you could ask and give permission for any student who needs to make a call home for a ride, please, I ask that you send it to the main office right now. Thank you.
Wait, are there no buses?
No, they're buses.
Okay, good.
All right, so that's the fixed right. All right, the last couple slides here. We just want to talk quickly about some injuries to the skeletal system. One is a fracture, and obviously, a fracture is a break in a bone. Okay, a broken bone is a fracture. There's different types of fractures. One that's common in young people especially is this fracture called the green stick fracture. And the name makes sense because, if you pick up like a dried up twig from the ground and snap it, it just snaps cleanly, right? That's one type of fracture. But if you take like a branch out, it's just on a tree still and you break it, it kind of breaks, but it's all still held together. It's still broken partially, but still partially together. And that sometimes happens to people. Like for example, this person has a green stick fracture of the tibia, where it's not broken cleanly. Some of the bone is still connected, but there is that fracture there. And that happens often in younger people. Why would it happen more in younger people?
I'm growing pains.
Well, not quite.
The bones aren't fully developed.
Yeah, the bones are not fully calcified, and they're still a little bit flexible and pliable, whereas an adult's bones are basically all filled in with calcium, are a little more brittle for a clean break. Brandon?
That's what the doctor said when I broke my ankle.
Yeah, it happens like I said. How old were you?
Fractured my wrist.
Okay, yeah. Christian?
Hello, hi.
This is a later question.
All right. Another just a simple fracture is just sort of a clean break through the bone. This is a person that fractured what?
His
Femur.
Femur. This is a fracture. This is a fracture of the femur. This would be like a very painful fracture. It's the largest bone in the body. Takes a lot of force to break a femur, and is subsequently very painful when it happens. Now, so this is like right after the break. Obviously, the bones are not anymore aligned properly. So, Christian, listen please. In order to help a person heal from a fracture like this, first step is the doctor needs to set the bones. What that means is basically realign them so that they're aligned properly so they can heal in a normal way. So they would usually the doctor would, just use their hands and move the leg to get things aligned. If it were a complex fracture or things weren't aligning very well, they may have to do surgery and open up the person's leg and actually align the bones. Sometimes with a break where it's a bad break or there's multiple pieces, they may have to use pins to hold everything together. All right, we're not done yet, Karima, so don't put it away. So that's what happens. So once they realign or set the bones, then they would normally put a cast on. And the cast is to make sure there's no movement so that the bone can fill in and heal properly and stay aligned. Because if you're constantly being moved while it's healing, then the bone never really fully heals and there may be problems.
Yeah, my dad's friend broke his femur and he had to do surgery and he had this huge.
Yeah, if you broke your femur, you have a big cast all over your full leg.
Huge.
Yeah, when you break a foot or something, you have to protect it from water.
That's just protecting the cast. It's not so much for your foot, but the cast, if it gets wet, can start to dissolve. All right, a compound fracture is when there's a simple fracture, but also the bone comes out and pierces through the skin.
Is that what happened to that basketball?
Yeah, it happened in the NCAA tournament.
Kevin Ware?
Yeah, last year, somebody he broke his tibia and it.
See it
Come out.
That was
Yeah, it was good.
People were crying like
Yeah, I know.
Like,
Yeah.
straight up.
Usually, I saw one where someone was running and like it went backwards. And you could see
Dude,
like,
stop.
a lot
Yeah,
Stop. Okay.
There's some gross stuff. All right, I don't need to know your horror stories about breaks. All right, when the bone does repair itself, it starts off, so here's soon after the fracture. And what happens is, when you damage the bone, there's blood vessels in there that get damaged. The bone is obviously broken in other tissue. So at first, it sort of starts to swell up. Eventually, new bone matter will start to fill in the gap. That's called spongy bone. Okay? And again, that's not fully formed, but eventually over time it fills in with what's called compact bone, which is stronger and fully heals. But even afterwards, the doctor, when they do an x-ray, they'll always be able to see the area that was broken because there's a slight enlargement there where the bone healed. The last thing to talk about today is a dislocation. Dislocation is when when the bones of a joint come out of their proper position. So for example, this is what joint has been dislocated here. Yeah, this is an elbow. This is the bottom of the humerus. This is the area that should fit in to this concave area in the radius, but obviously it's out of place. Okay? So when a person dislocates a joint, what the doctor will do is basically just get it back in. They would grab this person's forearm, sort of probably pull on it, and get it back so it fits back in. It hurts immediately, like when they do it, it hurts very badly. But if you've ever had a dislocated joint, as soon as it's over, it feels a lot better, right? The pain is gone. So it's kind of like a sudden sharp pain, and then it's back in place and should be feeling better. Because it healed? Yeah, it's just because that's that callus that forms. Here, so if you don't like gross pictures, this says dislocated ankle. You don't have to look.
Awesome.
But you can see a person's ankle, their foot. This should be down here, and it got dislocated. In fact, when this happened, the tendons, when they got stretched out so bad, they actually pulled off a little piece of bone with it because of that. So this would be like something that would happen.
The ball of my friend's shoulder went down her back, and they had to get it.
Yeah, I mean, people dislocate shoulders a lot. Like and especially contact sports like football, lacrosse. If you tackle somebody but you only sort of get the impact on your arm and not sort of up here, it can force that shoulder out of joint. It kind of stretches out some of those ligaments. Because after you dislocate a joint once or twice, the ligaments kind of get stretched out and becomes easier and easier to do. It happens more commonly. Bobby?